Let's begin with a simple but profound truth. The Middle East is defined by a deep and dangerous rivalry. This is the conflict between Iran and Israel. It's not a conventional war fought over a specific piece of land. Instead, it's a shadow war. Proxies, cyber attacks, covert operations. The two nations don't share a border, yet their animosity shapes the entire region. From the shores of the Mediterranean to the mountains of Yemen, their struggle for influence creates instability. This is the central geopolitical drama of our time, a conflict that constantly threatens to spill over into a direct and devastating confrontation. The roots of this conflict are complex and have evolved over decades. It was not always this way. Before the 1979 Islamic Revolution, Iran under the Shah maintained a working relationship with Israel, but the revolution changed everything. The new Islamic Republic of Iran adopted a fiercely anti-Zionist ideology. For its part, Israel came to see Iran, especially its pursuit of nuclear capabilities, as an existential threat. This ideological clash, layered with strategic competition for regional dominance, has created a cycle of mutual suspicion and hostility. So, we are left with a dangerous stalemate. It is into this seemingly hopeless environment that we must inject our what-if scenario, a new player entering the stage. Now let us turn our focus to Pakistan, a nation often misunderstood. Why could this country, with its own significant challenges, possibly hold a key to this intractable conflict? The answer lies in its unique and often contradictory identity. Pakistan is the world's second most populous Muslim nation, and the only one to possess declared nuclear weapons. This gives it a certain gravity and influence within the Islamic world. It's not an Arab state, which distances it from the core historical grievances of the Arab-Israeli conflict. This non-Arab identity could allow it to be seen as a more neutral arbiter by both sides, free from the direct historical baggage that burdens many other potential mediators. Furthermore, Pakistan has managed to walk a fine line in its international relationships. It maintains a deep, strategic and decades-long partnership with China. At the same time, despite recent frictions, it has a long history of security cooperation with the United States. This ability to speak to both Washington and Beijing is a rare asset. More critically, Pakistan has cultivated a close relationship with Saudi Arabia, the leader of the Sunni Muslim world and a key rival to Iran. Yet it also shares a long and porous border with Iran and has maintained a working, if sometimes tense, relationship with the Shiite Republic. This complex web of relationships means Pakistan can talk to everyone. No other country in the region possesses this specific combination of diplomatic access. Turkey has its own imperial ambitions. Egypt is too enmeshed in the Arab-Israeli dynamic. The Gulf Arab states are openly hostile to Iran. Pakistan, however, sits at the crossroads of South Asia, Central Asia, and the Middle East, a pivot state whose geography and history have forced it to become a master of multi-alignment. So how would this journey of 1,000 miles begin? It would not start with a grand summit or a public declaration. That would be doomed to fail. The first step would have to be taken in absolute secrecy, far from the glare of the media. The process would be initiated by the highest levels of the Pakistani state, likely a small trusted cell within the military or intelligence services, acting with the full backing of the civilian government. This group's first task would be to use its existing back channels to float the idea separately and discreetly to senior figures in Tehran and to senior figures in Jerusalem. The initial message would be simple: a no-commitment offer to facilitate a conversation about de-escalation. The initial focus would not be on peace, but on something much more modest: reducing the risk of accidental war. Pakistan could propose acting as a go-between for a deconfliction mechanism. This could involve sharing intelligence about troop movements in Syria, or establishing a hotline routed through Islamabad for emergency communication. These are small, technical steps, but they are crucial for building a sliver of trust. Pakistan's role would be that of a postman, reliably and confidentially delivering messages without judgment or alteration, proving its worth as an honest broker. Once this initial channel is established and has proven its utility, the scope could be gradually expanded. The next phase might involve talks about proxy forces. Pakistan could facilitate discussions aimed at establishing unstated rules of the game for the shadow war. A Pakistani-led mediation effort, even one conducted in secret, would send ripples across the globe. Let us first consider the immediate neighbors and regional powers. Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. They'd see engagement with Iran as a threat to isolating Tehran and as a betrayal of Sunni solidarity. Pakistan's economic and military ties to the Gulf give it leverage. Islamabad could frame the move not as a favor to Iran, but as a necessity to prevent a regional war that would devastate Gulf economies. Turkey might view the initiative with envy and try to insert itself into the process. Egypt and Jordan would likely be quietly supportive. Syria and Lebanon, any de-escalation would be a welcome respite, but entrenched interests like Hezbollah would resist. The reaction from the global powers would be pivotal. United States, initially, Washington would be wary. Decades of American policy have been built on containing Iran. Hawks in Congress would resist. A pragmatic administration might see value if Pakistan can demonstrate progress on the nuclear file. The US could become a quiet supporter, offering technical expertise and diplomatic cover. China. Beijing has major Belt and Road investments in Iran and Pakistan. A Middle East war would be a strategic disaster for China's economic interests. Russia. Moscow would welcome a chance to be a regional broker and challenge American dominance. Russia could use its presence in Syria to help enforce de-escalation agreements on the ground. This great power dynamic could create a supportive international environment, but it also risks turning the peace process into another arena of US-China-Russia competition. The key would be for Pakistan to keep Washington informed. For the region, the rewards would be even greater. A successful mediation would avert the constant threat of a catastrophic war that could kill hundreds of thousands and cripple the global economy. Embarking on such an audacious diplomatic mission would be a monumental gamble for Pakistan, with risks as profound as the potential rewards. The greatest danger is, of course, failure. If the talks collapse acrimoniously, Pakistan could find itself alienated by both sides. Iran might accuse it of being an American pawn. Israel could see it as sympathetic to Tehran. The failure could also expose Pakistan's diplomatic limitations, damaging its international standing. A failed process could make the situation worse. It might lead hardliners in both Iran and Israel to conclude that diplomacy is futile. That could make military conflict more, not less, likely. Pakistan would have to manage this risk by ensuring the process is incremental and reversible at every stage. There are also significant domestic risks for Pakistan. The country's political landscape is deeply polarized. Its population holds strong views on the Palestinian cause. Any perceived normalization with Israel, even for the sake of mediation, could be politically explosive. Extremist groups could use the issue to incite violence and destabilize the government. Pakistani leadership would have to maintain public solidarity with the Palestinian cause while engaging privately with Israel on matters of regional security. This would require a masterful communication strategy and a strong national consensus, often in short supply in Pakistan's fractious democracy. The effort could easily unravel under the weight of internal political pressure. However, the rewards for success would be transformative. If Pakistan could broker even a lasting de-escalation, its international prestige would soar. It would establish itself as a major diplomatic power, a peacemaker capable of solving problems that have stumped the great powers for decades. That would bring immense soft power, translate into tangible economic benefits, attract investment. It would change the narrative about Pakistan, away from terrorism and instability, toward diplomacy and constructive engagement, a nation-defining achievement. Let us imagine for a moment that this high-stakes wager pays off. Pakistan succeeds in brokering a durable security agreement between Iran and Israel. The impact would not be confined to the Middle East. It would create positive shockwaves across the entire globe. First and foremost, it would dramatically lower the temperature on the most dangerous flashpoint for a potential nuclear conflict. With a verifiable agreement on Iran's nuclear program, brokered by a trusted third party, the international non-proliferation regime would be strengthened. The economic consequences would be equally profound. The Persian Gulf is the world's energy artery. The constant threat of an Iran-Israel war adds a significant risk premium to the price of oil. A stable security accord would remove this premium, leading to lower and more stable energy prices globally. This would act as a massive stimulus for the world economy, reducing inflation, lowering transportation costs, and boosting consumer spending in countries from America to Japan. The opening of Iran, a market of over 80 million people, increased stability in the Levant would unlock enormous potential for trade and investment. This success would also reshape the diplomatic landscape of the 21st century. It would signal a shift away from a world where only the great powers can solve major international crises. United States, China, Russia. It would demonstrate the rising influence of middle powers and the effectiveness of local solutions for local problems. A Pakistani success would empower other regional actors, Brazil, South Africa. This could lead to a more multipolar and resilient international system. It would be a victory for a new kind of diplomacy. Finally, a breakthrough between Iran and Israel could begin to heal some of the deepest ideological divides in our world. Islam in the West, Shia and Sunni, Persian and Arab worlds. A pragmatic peace, even a cold one, would prove that these divides are not insurmountable. It would not erase history, but it would show that we are not prisoners of it. In the end, what this thought experiment truly reveals is the untapped potential that lies within the international system. We often look to Washington, Brussels, Beijing for answers to the world's most difficult problems. We assume that only the immense power and resources of a superpower can force warring parties to the table. But this perspective can be limiting. Great powers are often burdened by their own histories, their global rivalries, and their domestic politics. Their very strength can make them appear as biased actors rather than honest brokers. Sometimes the key to unlocking a frozen conflict may lie not with the most powerful, but with the most uniquely positioned. The hypothetical case of Pakistan mediating between Iran and Israel is a powerful illustration of this principle. It is a reminder that nations we often associate with problems can also be the source of solutions. Pakistan's unique geography, its complex web of alliances, and its distinct identity within the Muslim world give it a set of tools no other country possesses. This is not to downplay the immense difficulties or the low probability of success. The path would be fraught with peril, but to dismiss the possibility out of hand is to suffer from a failure of imagination. In international relations, as in life, the most unlikely actors can sometimes achieve the most extraordinary results. Instead of imposing solutions from the outside, the international community should focus more on empowering and supporting credible regional mediators. Whether it is the African Union or a country like Indonesia, local actors often have a deeper understanding of culture, the history, the personalities involved. They have a greater stake in the outcome, as instability in their neighborhood directly affects their own security and prosperity. This is the essence of building a more stable and self-regulating global order. So, could Pakistan bring peace to Iran and Israel? The odds are long, the risks are high, and the obstacles are monumental. It remains the ultimate what-if. But by exploring this scenario, we challenge our own assumptions about where power lies and how peace can be made. We are reminded that diplomacy is an art of the possible, and that sometimes the most creative solutions emerge from the most unexpected places. It is a hopeful perspective, suggesting that even in the darkest of geopolitical rivalries, there are always paths to a better future, if we are willing to look for them, and if nations are brave enough to walk them. The first step is simply to believe that it is possible.